Hello, it's me again, the snarky juror. And we're here for the afternoon session, day 25 of the Massachusetts versus Karen Reed trial. Old age sucks. I'm quoting my former mother-in-law. Oh, anyway, any other older person that I know, old age sucks. Enjoy your youth while you got it, because once you lose it, downhill after that. Okay, let's just get into it. I'm going to assume that Trooper Joseph Paul, who was a collision analyst for the Massachusetts State Police, is going to be on the thingy. Witness stand. Yeah, that's good. They're still standing for the jury.
Thank you. Maybe see it close back.
They've been having fun switching seats around. Earlier,
Just watch your step for me.
Elizabeth Little and Alan Jackson had switched places, and Karen Reed was sitting in between Miss Little and Alan Jackson. So I don't know if it was just set up that way for a second to lay out what was ever
Afternoon, Trooper.
or what. I don't know. So, Mr. Trooper.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, may we have Exhibit 587 back up on the screen?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman,
Why?
that's
It
the
doesn't
image.
tell us anything.
Trooper Paul, directing your attention to what's up on the screen. It's now been marked as Exhibit 587. Again, this is the last in the set of four diagrams or drone images that I presented before you before, correct?
Correct.
Now, with respect to the evidence, specifically pieces of taillight that are depicted within this diagram, did you put every single piece of taillight that was recovered on January 29th within this diagram?
No, I did not.
Fair to say you did also not put every piece of taillight there. You're aware what's recovered over the course of this investigation.
Now, are you aware they were planted?
That's correct.
Now, with
Illegally
respect
to
to this particular area
in
of
place
Fairview
there?
Road,
Are you aware?
understanding that you were there in the daytime, correct?
Yes.
However, when you were there in the daytime, what, if any, note did you take as to sort of overhead lighting or available sort of ambient street lighting in the area?
Yeah, so on the top corner, I'll try to right up here, there's a light pole right there, overhead light pole.
And with relation to where you've marked as far as the final rest position of Mr. O'Keefe and the other areas of
And how did you know that
items of evidence that were recovered
came
from
to
the scene, was there any lighting in that particular area?
There wasn't.
Ms. Gilman, you can take that down.
For all the good
Mr.
it
Officer,
did,
now.
it wasn't in
Thank you very much.
perspective. It didn't show a 6-foot person laying there.
Now, turning your
And the
attention,
exact
sir, back
location where he-
to February
location where
1st,
he was.
2022.
Because nobody documented that.
At some point, you were at the Canton Police Department, correct?
Yes.
And where specifically within the Canton Police Department did you go?
To the back in the garage area.
And within the garage area, what if anything did you do in the garage area?
In the garage area is where we imaged the airbag control module.
And so, I'm sorry, is it fair to say the vehicle, the defendant's vehicle was located in that garage area?
That is correct.
And you imaged that vehicle, and what, if anything else, did you do with respect to that vehicle that day?
At that point, we just analyzed the damage to the vehicle.
Now,
The
at
alleged
some
damage.
point,
Because it wasn't.
did you
It
perform
wasn't
any sort of
damaged
mechanical
like that
inspection of the
before it
vehicle?
entered the South
Yes.
Port.
Was that day or at some later?
It was that day.
And was that within the garage area itself, or where did you perform the mechanical inspection of the vehicle?
We analyzed a little bit of the steering and the brake pedals while I was sitting in the garage. Then we did testing with it on the in the driveway next to Canton PD.
Now, sir, starting with
You have permission to drive Karen's car.
a visual inspection of the vehicle.
Those are snide remarks.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm really tired of all this taillight evidence, which is a bunch of hooey.
So I'm showing you two photographs. Ask you to just review those. Look up when you finish. Do you recognize those?
I do.
Taillight with
And what do you recognize those to be?
missing.
They are crime scene photos that I've attached to my report.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth is seeks to introduce and admit as the next two exhibits.
Objection, Your Honor.
Yep. Sorry.
Cracked taillight with a piece missing.
Thank you.
Before it was put on the truck and towed to Canton.
Your Honor, may I return those to the witness?
That's the description of Dighton police officer Barrows. Cracked taillight with a piece missing. Wait until you see these photos.
Yes.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission.
Yes.
Thank you. One moment, Your Honor.
Okay.
And Trooper Paul, do you recognize what's up on the screen right now?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that?
That's one of the crime scene photos that I attached to my report.
And what's contained in this, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of sort of the front of this vehicle, looking at it from the passenger side?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have the next photograph, please. And Trooper, do you recognize what's up on the screen now?
Yes, I do.
A cracked taillight with a piece missing. Is that what you see? A cracked taillight with a piece missing. Do you see that? I'll say it again. A cracked taillight with a piece missing. Again. Officer Nicholas Barrows from the Dighton Police Department was asked what he saw in the driveway before the tow truck took possession of the car and put it on the truck. His description was taillight was cracked and a piece missing. That's not what's being shown here at all. At all. I am so tired of them gaslighting, fudging, manipulating, lying.
What do you recognize that?
That's a crime scene photo that I attached to my report with notations that I made on it.
And what's contained in this photograph, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed in the rear passenger side area of the defendant's vehicle in the garage on February 1st?
Yes, it is.
Now, step back a little bit here. With regards to what you've noted within this, if you could, using the laser pointer before you, just direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, of significance you observed in your inspection of this area of the Lexus.
Okay. So on the left side here, I put down that scratches, and there's a dent there. The broken taillight here was here. There's some scratches on the bottom right rear bumper here. And there was glass from a cut back on the bumper.
As far as the glass on the bumper, what, if any,
It wasn't from
observations
the cup.
did you make of that in relation to
Did not match
vehicle
the glass
itself.
of the cup.
Yeah, appear to be from a cup as opposed to any glass that came from the vehicle.
No.
Objection.
So I'll strike the first part of the answer, but the second part will stand.
I have no objections on the second part. Thank you.
Now, with regard to the dent that you've delineated within this photograph, did you take any measurements from the ground as to where that was located?
Yes, I did.
And how far did you measure the dent to be approximately from the ground?
Approximately 48 to 50 inches from the ground.
And what, if any, measurements did you take as far as from one part of the vehicle to the other, as far as where the dents were located?
Yeah, so it was approximately 19 inches from the right side of the vehicle.
Now, the scratches that you were talking about before, where were they in relation to the dent?
Right above the dent. I can see right there. As my hand's shaky.
Now, as far as you obviously also made observations of the driver's side tail light as well.
Yes.
And so, from what you observed of the driver's side tail light versus the
There's the
passenger
picture.
side tail light, what, if any, observations did you make as far as the color of the pieces that you found missing from the passenger side tail light?
As compared to the left side of the tail light.
Yes.
So on the left side of the tail light, there was red and clear plastic pieces.
Where's the picture?
Now, the scratch marks along the bumper, did you take any measurements with relation to them?
Yes.
And specifically, did you take measurements from the ground to where they were located?
Yes.
What did you measure those?
They were approximately 27 to 28 inches from the ground.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wynn, you can take that down.
Don't believe a word. Don't believe a
Now,
word.
Trooper Paul.
Prosecutor saying.
When you talk about a mechanical inspection of a
Crap.
vehicle, just first in general terms, what is it that you're doing with respect to the vehicle in order to conduct that mechanical inspection?
So when we do mechanical inspections, we're obviously checking the steering, make sure the steering moves properly, the brake pedals, make sure they are firm, make sure the accelerator pedal moves back and forth. Just generally looking at the tires, make sure there's no issues with the vehicle.
And what, if any, observations did you make of the vehicle itself as far as any defects or anything to do with the braking, the tires, or any of the
No
other areas
defects.
that you inspected?
We didn't observe any mechanical defects with the vehicle.
Now, with relation to the weight of the vehicle, what, if any, analysis, or what, if anything, did you determine as to the weight of the Lexus?
The way the Lexus item was on an analysis was just based on I think I have the gross vehicle weighting for the vehicle.
And how much did the vehicle weigh according to the gross weight?
I think it was approximately 7,000 pounds.
Now, with respect to the lights of the vehicle and being the tail lights and the headlights, what, if anything, did you determine those to be as far as what type of lights were they?
They were LED. They were headlights and taillights were both LED.
And if you could just expound a little as far as LED lights, what, if any, significance does that have to you, or what kind of lights are LED? How bright are LED lights?
LED most comparison to what most people think in car and tail lights, where I have the bulbs, where they have the filaments. LED is more electronically controlled. They there's a sensor that will light up, as opposed to a bulb type headlight and tail lights.
Now, are you familiar with an organization called NHTSA?
Yes.
And what does NHTSA stand for?
It's the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
And what, if anything, did you do with regard to NHTSA in respect to this vehicle itself?
We run the vehicle through NHTSA to see if there's any recalls on the vehicle.
And what, if any, recalls did you discover when you ran this particular vehicle through NHTSA?
There were no recalls.
And to be specific, we're talking about this specific vehicle as opposed to just Lexuses in general, make and model, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we put the VIN into the system, and it will tell you if this vehicle has any recalls to it.
Now, you indicated on February 1st at some point you did some testing with the vehicle. Is that correct?
Correct.
And where was that testing done, and what did it consist of?
It was done in the parking lot of Canton PD on the same day. We did a forward braking test, a reverse braking test, and a reverse acceleration test.
Now, the parking lot of the Canton Police Station where you did this, what kind of roadway surface was that?
It's an asphalt surface.
So similar to the asphalt surface at 34 Fairview Road, is that correct?
Correct.
And what was the condition of the roadway as far as how dry or wet was the roadway when you conducted these acceleration and braking tests?
It was wet at the time.
And with respect to your understanding of January 29th, 2022, with the asphalt surface in front of 34 Fairview Road, what was the condition weather-wise as far as that roadway surface at the time of this collision?
At the time of the collision?
Yes.
What I understand is it was snowy, so the asphalt road had been fairly wet from snow.
Now, when you conducted these acceleration and braking tests with the defendant's vehicle, what if anything did you, what if any tool or what if any implement did you use in the course of that testing?
We use a device called it's called a V-Box. This one's a V-Box Sport. The device is attached to the windshield, and then it's also attached by an antenna that goes to the roof. And then basically V-Box, do you want to explain what a V-Box is?
Please.
Okay. So a V-Box is just, it measures performance for the vehicle. It uses GPS data to measure the speeds and its location. Use that it'll give us how fast we were stopping, a drag factor for the roadway for that specific vehicle and type of road, and acceleration factors. So we attach that to the windshield, just kind of give me a way to check its acceleration, check its performance.
And sorry, you're on one moment, please.
Sure.
I got to get my lies together. I got to make sure I'm saying the right story. This version of it. Yeah, I'm pissed.
So the V-Box is attached to that vehicle, so it's what specifically is it measuring?
So yeah, it's using the GPS data to apply its location, and so it's measuring its speeds and using the speed and the location, putting that together. And once you use the app through the V-Box and you set certain parameters as like you can go, I want 30 miles per hour, 20 miles per hour, 10 miles per hour, and it'll set your vehicle. So when you go to 30 miles per hour, it'll tell you what you're doing at 30, what you're doing at 20, what you're doing at 10, and then it'll know if you're doing braking or acceleration tests. And it'll use those numbers that you have to give you, your acceleration factor or braking factor for the vehicle.
And so from the V-Box Sports device that you use, and you've received training as it applies to using that device?
Yes, I do.
And certification as well?
It's usually just training on it.
Now, with respect to the V-Box Sport as it's attached to that vehicle, that's measuring specifically from that vehicle with those tires on that roadway surface that day, correct?
That's correct.
Now, with regard to that testing on that day, you did some acceleration or reverse acceleration tests, is that correct?
Correct.
And how many of those tests did you conduct?
2.
And you describe to the jury sort of how you conducted those tests or what speeds you were using or sort of that process of the 2 reverse acceleration tests that you conducted that day.
So the reverse acceleration test we conducted, we set the parameters up to at least 25 miles per hour. So what we did is we try to come from a stop at 0 and then press the accelerators all the way about as hard as I could press it and try to go back and see how fast I can get to 25 miles per hour. And see what the performance it did at that time.
And what, if any, kind of data did you receive with the V-Box Sport using during those 2 reverse acceleration tests?
It gave me an acceleration factor. It gave me its speeds and times and distances that it was at each location.
And if you could explain to the jury, sort of when you say acceleration factor, what is an acceleration factor?
It's just a number of how fast the vehicle could travel from an acceleration. And it could be a light acceleration to a medium acceleration, a hard acceleration. They all have a different number that you can use to kind of relate it back to what the acceleration is for that vehicle.
And what was the acceleration factor that you were able to obtain with those 2 reverse acceleration tests?
I believe this was I had 0.317, I believe.
Now, during the course of those the reverse acceleration tests that you conducted on that day, what, if anything, did you know well, let me ask you this. As far as the operation of the vehicle, who is actually physically operating the vehicle?
I was actually operating the vehicle.
And what, if anything, did you note during your operation of that vehicle during the reverse acceleration test that you conducted?
We also noted the accelerator pedal moved freely. There was no binding. There were no interference from anything on the floor. Nothing interfered with the accelerator pedal. It worked as it's supposed to.
And when you're doing this reverse acceleration test, how are you, if at all, are you manipulating the steering wheel at all, or is it a straight line test, or how is the test? How is the vehicle directed during the test?
So I try to keep it fairly straight.
And when you accelerated in reverse in a fairly straight fashion with the steering wheel, what, if anything, did you note about that?
They kept the vehicle fairly straight. There was it was fairly easy to keep control of.
Now, in addition to the 2 reverse acceleration tests, what, if any, testing did you do with regard to reverse braking?
Yeah, so we conducted 2 reverse braking tests.
And again, similar, can you describe to the jury, this is also with the V-Box Sport attached, is that correct?
Correct.
So you're obtaining data from that as well?
Yes.
And during the course of the reverse braking test, what, if anything, first as far as data is concerned, how fast were these tests being conducted? What, if anything, was input, and what, if any, data did you receive from?
Yeah, so the reverse braking one, we try to get up to about 30 miles per hour. And then once we get up to that speed, that's when we apply the brakes, try to brake the brakes fairly hard to try to get the vehicle to stop.
And are you also familiar with the term known as a deceleration factor?
Correct.
And can you explain to the jury what that is?
It's just essentially the opposite of an acceleration factor. This is a number for how fast the vehicle would slow down.
And with regard to the deceleration factor from the 2 reverse braking tests that you conducted on that date, what, if any, figure did you receive from the instrument from the V-Box Sport?
For the reverse braking?
Yes.
I believe this one was gets you a drag factor number for this vehicle too, and it's our deceleration factor, which is both are used the same way. This one was a point, I think it was 7.1.
Now, with regard, again, you're operating the vehicle during these 2 reverse braking tests, is that correct?
Yes, I was.
And what, if anything, did you note in regard to the operation of the vehicle when you were conducting these 2 reverse braking tests?
Yeah, the brake pedal was firm. There was no pulsation from the brake.
Now, in addition, sir, were you able to conduct some forward braking tests?
Yes, I was.
And
Larry,
similar again, could you describe to the jury
Did you
as far
notice
as
anything
how you were operating
malfunctioning
the
on the
vehicle
car?
during the forward braking test?
Yeah, it's essentially the same thing as reverse. Except I was going forward this time. I got up to 30 miles per hour, and I would just apply the brakes about as hard as I could apply them till it stops.
And again, are you receiving from the instrument some sort of deceleration factor?
Yes, I was.
Did you recall what that was?
Yeah, it was a 0.69.
And during the course of your operation of the vehicle during the forward braking test, again, what, if anything, did you note in regard to the operation of the defendant's vehicle?
Same as before, the brake pedal was firm. There was no pulsation, no issues.
Now, we talked a little bit about a ACM or an airbag control module, correct?
Correct.
You indicated earlier in your testimony that you had downloaded information from that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, when you download that information, what, if anything, do you get from the vehicle, or what, if any, how are you able to sort of read or interpret that data?
So in the airbag control model, it's equipped with a spot event data recorder on EDR. And then that data from the EDR, we will use the Boss CDR software and we'll attach to the vehicle. And then that software will basically extract the information or image the information that's in the module. And so that information could range from getting us speeds, if there was braking, if there was, steering wheel movements, basically like looking for change of velocity, that type of, so there's a lot of, information around the vehicle.
May I approach you?
Yes.
Well, your documents are 7 pages in length, essentially review that when you're finished.
Physically, there is nothing wrong with the vehicle.
Do you recognize that document, sir?
Anything
I do.
that was
What do you recognize that to be?
driver error.
This is the document that gets printed out through from the airbag control model through the crash data retrieval software.
Thank you. May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm up to seek to introduce the minutes in that exhibit.
No objection.
Exhibit 590.
Now, sir, when it comes to the CDR printouts, or let me ask you this. When it comes to the airbag control module, who is that designed to protect or to apply to in respect to safety measures with the vehicle?
Applies to the occupants inside the vehicle.
And this may sound a little terse when I say it, but essentially the airbag control module is typically not designed to protect people on the exterior or the outside of the vehicle, correct?
Correct.
Now, you've been involved in a number of crash investigations involving pedestrians, correct?
Yes.
And as far as this particular case, what, if any, sort of useful or significant information were you able to interpret or retrieve from the ACM?
And this through the software, there was no data recovered or no events recovered.
And when it comes to pedestrian crashes in general, and as far as there being no data in this case, is that something that's abnormal?
It is not.
Explain to the jury sort of why not.
So what an airbag control module is doing, it's as it's running, it's constantly monitoring the vehicle. It's looking for like a sudden change of velocity, and like a collision. So once it feels that sudden change of velocity, essentially will wake up and monitor the vehicle, see if there's people wearing seatbelts on, what's the speed of the vehicle, number of different things that it could look for. And all it wants to do is either do I deploy the airbags or do I tighten the seatbelts? So most motor vehicle crashes with a car-on-car crash, there will be a higher change of velocity. So that's usually kind of what it's looking for. Pedestrian crashes are going to, there's not going to be much change of velocity to the vehicle. That means when they both interact with each other, the pedestrian is not going to change that vehicle's velocity in such a quick manner as, say, two cars would strike each other.
Now, with respect to crash reconstruction in general, are you familiar with a term called delta V?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury sort of what that term means as far as what is a delta V and what is it measured?
So that's kind of what I was saying about the change of velocity. It was a change of velocity. And I mean, like change of velocity, like it's also going to be within a certain amount of time. So change amount of speed within a certain amount of time. So.
And with respect to the vehicle as it applies to crashes or collisions involving pedestrians, and I think you've said a little bit about this, but what, if any,
Only if they slam on
impact
brakes.
on the velocity of the vehicle would striking a pedestrian typically have?
Very little.
Now, specifically when it applies to pedestrian collisions in general, are you familiar with the concept of linear momentum?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury sort of what that is and how it applies with pedestrian crashes in general?
Linear momentum. Momentum is essentially when two objects interact with each other. They come in with momentum and they leave with momentum, with essentially the same momentum. And linear momentum just means something that's in line with each other.
Now, as far as we talked a little bit earlier in your testimony about roadway evidence, when it comes to your experience with pedestrian collisions, what, if any, relationship does that linear momentum have in relation to roadway evidence that you would expect to find at a scene of a pedestrian collision?
So when a pedestrian strikes a vehicle, they will go in the direction where the vehicle was traveling. So if the vehicle is traveling one way, the pedestrian strikes, it will go essentially that same way, depending on what part that vehicle strikes.
Now, as far as other items that the pedestrian may either have in their hand or other items of looser fitting clothing, what, if any, experience do you have as far as observations of those on collision scenes involving pedestrian collisions?
Yeah, so it's not uncommon for pedestrians to lose essentially any sort of loose clothing. So shoes, belts, hats, anything that's
Untie the
not very strapped on very well,
Does it untie
could
the shoes?
leave the body.
And as far as directionality is concerned, when it applies to that linear momentum that you were speaking of before, those sort of loosely held or handheld items, or would glasses be included within that as well?
Correct.
So those types of items, as far as directionality is concerned, what, if anything, can you tell the jury about that?
Yeah, so they will go in the same direction the pedestrian travels post-impact. We usually use that as kind of a post-impact path of travel for the pedestrian, showing that this is the direction that they would have traveled from where they got struck.
Now, are you also familiar with the reconstruction terms known as area of impact and point of impact?
Correct.
And can you explain what those terms mean excuse me, in a crash reconstruction context for the jury?
Yeah, so an area impact is essentially the area where the crash happened, where these two vehicles or vehicle pedestrians, where their initial impact happened. Point of impact is the same thing. It's just more down to like that specific point at a specific area. Area can mean a little bit broader in that sense.
And what are some of is this something that is delineated somewhat, at least by roadway evidence?
Correct.
And if you could describe to the jury sort of what types of roadway evidence that would lead you or any crash reconstructionist to formulate an opinion as to the area of impact?
Yeah, so like I said earlier with the path of travel, so a lot of in collisions most of our collisions we start where the final arrest goes, and we follow the debris or the clothing. We're back to where, follow that path back to where it came from. And we know within that area, that's where an area impact would be.
Now, with relation to the evidence that was depicted on the diagrams that were up on the screen before as the exhibits, what, if any, relationship would the taillight pieces and the shoe that were recovered from the street in front of 34 Fairview Road have in relation to that area of impact?
Yeah, so they were found alongside the roadway. So I know that they were found, the area impact had been somewhere within the roadway and probably somewhere at the beginning, just prior to the beginning of the first point of evidence that we found.
So somewhere towards the first point of evidence contained within that debris field, is that correct?
Correct.
Actually, that's where the Ford Ed stopped and
Now,
dumped everything out and then took off at 3 o'clock in the morning. Might have been when Officer O'Keefe was put there as well.
have one more.
Yes.
Now, sir, are you also familiar with a safety system specifically applicable to Lexus vehicles?
Yes.
And have you seen training in regard to downloading information in regard to that as well?
Yes.
And what is that safety system? What is that called?
It's called the Toyota TechStream software.
And so the Toyota TechStream is a software similar to the crash data retrieval or CDR software that you were talking about, but just specific to a Lexus.
Yeah, but it's between Toyota and Lexus has software. The TechStream it's similar in the fact that they both record data to the vehicle. TechStream was created by Toyota for their technicians to diagnose vehicles and use that information to help, any kind of mechanical issues that they would have with the vehicle that they can do when you bring your car to them. They can look at the TechStream and just kind of find out what caused the mechanical issue.
Now, with respect to the Toyota TechStream data that's available, what kind of data are we talking?
So TechStream, yeah, they obviously the diagnostic stuff. So they're looking for any engine defaults or anything else. But they also have what's called a vehicle control history in it.
Sorry, I missed that. Called what?
A vehicle control history.
Thank you.
And the vehicle control history it's basically monitoring people's driving behavior. So it has certain, they call it triggers that they have listed. And when those triggers are met, they will record data related to that trigger.
And what type of data, in general terms, what type of data are you able to recover through the Toyota TechStream tool from the vehicle control history?
Yeah, so each trigger, you can record it's the same as the you got to get your speeds, brakes, if the accelerator pedal's on, look for steering wheel angles, engine RPMs, all the information that you have related to vehicles.
If you have a bad driving
Now, in
habit,
addition, is it
it
possible with vehicles that have some vehicles made that are accessible through this Toyota tech stream, including Lexus, which I should say, I'm sorry. So Lexus is manufactured by Toyota, correct?
That's correct.
So in some vehicles, Toyota or Lexus vehicles are made by that manufacturer, are equipped with camera systems. Is that correct?
Correct.
And again, in general terms, what, if anything, in relation to the camera system, is it possible to collect from the vehicle control system?
The camera systems in certain vehicles can record photos, like little grainy black and white photos.
And were you able to recover any black and white photos or photos of any kind from the defendant's vehicle in this case?
I was not.
Now, with respect to the sort of physical process of the downloading using this Toyota TechStream tool, can you explain to the jury sort of how that's physically done or what you're doing to the vehicle in order to download that information?
The same process, just different software as we would for the airbag control module. As I said before, we plug into the DLC port and then open up that software program, and we follow the steps and we extract the information from the vehicle.
Now, the extraction of the Toyota TechStream data in this particular case, when was that accomplished?
For this one, I believe it was February 2nd, 2023.
So a year and a day after you had conducted the braking and acceleration test and inspected the vehicle in the Canton Police Department garage?
That's correct.
And so as far as the timing of that being February 2nd of 2023, why was that?
I was at the time of my initial inspection, I didn't really know much about TechStream at that point. So over time, I kind of learned about TechStream. And so once I learned about it and I thought, is this relevant to our case? And I looked more into it and found that it is relevant. So.
And the Toyota TechStream, as far as that applicability or that tool, is that a relatively newer tool in the area of crash reconstruction? It is
getting fairly newer, as in it's getting spread out. It's getting bigger. It first got created on one vehicle in 2014. So it's been slowly trickling into the Toyotas and Lexus vehicles over time. But it's definitely gotten bigger within the past couple of years.
Now, with regard to this information, when you were then able to download that information, you received some data. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you mentioned that it goes, or it's measured sort of by triggers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And from the data that you were able to obtain from the defendant's vehicle, what type of data were you able to retrieve as it relates to the vehicle control history?
Yes. So, this had like a page and a half full of triggers that over the vehicle's time span that it captured.
Like what?
And with respect to the triggers, how many triggers did it capture?
It's like a page and a half. I don't know exact numbers of how many triggers that
Like
was on each page, but there was, it's at least a good page and a half full of triggers.
Your Honor, may the trooper refer to his notes in regard to
Yes.
that?
Yeah, sit there and count each one of them.
The trooper, if I could direct you, I think it's page 9 of your report.
Okay.
What kind of triggers? California stops, barely stopping, fast acceleration. What are we talking about?
And how many triggers was it, sir?
Can we count them?
Does he have to count them, Mr. Lally?
No, I don't think he has to count them.
You wanted them to.
Sir, if I could direct you to paragraph 23.
Oh, yeah. So 22 separate triggers. Those are, so in my report, it says 22 separate triggers that occurred on odometer mileage 12665 to 12666.
And with regard to the mileage that you noted as far as being between miles 12665 and miles 12666, that's 12,665 to 12,666, correct?
Correct.
And what was the mileage that you observed on the vehicle at inspection?
That's 1 mile.
12,665.
And at the time that you conducted this Toyota TechStream download from the vehicle, what was the mileage at that time?
12,666.
And there's also reference within the vehicle control history data in regard to something called a key cycle. Is that correct?
Correct.
And can you explain to the jury sort of what a key cycle is and what are the different things that could trigger a key cycle?
Key cycle is essentially, so it's the
Mile
from the
going to
ignition
her
cycle.
dad's place.
Well, let's take a step. So a key cycle is essentially from when the vehicle's off, it's pressed on. It doesn't necessarily need to be running or turned on. It just needs to be turned on and then off again, and that'd be one key cycle.
Now, with relation to your analysis in regard to the vehicle control history, what, if any, role did the key cycle numbers or what kind of role did that play in your analysis?
It shows me where how far away they were from each other. The key cycles were.
And how far away in what terms, sir?
So when I turned the vehicle on, when I did my testing, it shows me what key cycle was that I was on when I did those testings, and then the odometer mileage in relationship to that.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
He's speaking Greek to me. The 1 mile he's
Sir, I'm showing
talking
you the
about
documents. He's asking you to look at that, look up.
was right before the tow truck picked it up. So it was on the way over to her dad's.
And do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That is the table from the vehicle control history from my report.
And Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Come off the seat, introduce the minutes and next exhibit.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay. The 591.
Your Honor, may I have a moment and then return it to the witness?
Yes.
I'm tired of your moments, guys.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could ask to publish this to the jury. Now, Trooper Paul, what's up on the screen? Is that the exhibit that you have before you?
Yes, it is.
Now, if you could, using the ways pointed before you, just direct the jury's attention to what we're looking at in this exhibit and what type of information, where it's located within this exhibit.
Okay, so this is the vehicle control history. Every single point here, this is where the triggers are. This is the labels for each trigger. Odometer mileage is on this label here. You see elapsed time and key cycles. I have noted through arrows here, these were when the vehicle was with us, and a lot of this is related to my testing with the vehicle. And these right before that were the triggers that were prior to those testings.
So it means absolutely
Now,
nothing.
from the within this table, sir, there are two triggers recorded at odometer mile 12,629.
Yes.
And what's the key cycle associated with 12,629?
1,162.
Now, these triggers that are contained as far as the 12,629, that's prior to the.
Okay, you have to either come closer or speak up even louder, Mr. Malley.
I will speak louder.
There's no microphone near you. That's the problem for the court reporter.
My issue is, Your Honor, there's no
Wake
light.
up, ding dong.
All right, so let's turn the light on and then you can ask your question, then we'll turn the light right back off, please, Hunter.
Thank you, Your Honor. My apologies. So that odometer mile, as far as two triggering events, at 12,629, correct?
Yes.
And that occurs prior to the 12,665, 12,666 during the course of your braking and acceleration test, correct?
Correct.
And the mileage difference between those two, did you do that math?
Yes,
What was the mileage difference between the two?
36.
And how many key cycles were different between your testing and that odometer reading of 12,629?
2 key cycles.
Now, as far as the, what if any information did you have and where did you get it in relation to the defendant's vehicle's path of travel prior to those odometer readings that you noted when you did your test?
Yeah, so yeah, I was told that where she traveled afterwards or prior to that. I was noted their locations, and I used those locations through Google to get a mileage for them.
May I approach her?
Yes.
So the last mile was him doing all the tests. So that doesn't count. What counts is what was
You
highlighted.
another document, sir? Do you recognize that?
I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
Those are the Google directions. I put them in a table and put in my report.
And may I approach her?
Yes.
I wanted to introduce you to the next exhibit.
No objection.
Exhibit 592. Thank you.
All right, I have 1 minute, Sean.
Are
Yes.
these included in this?
May I return it to the witness, Sean?
Yes.
And Your Honor, of course, permission if I could publish it to the jury.
Okay.
Someone, if you could enlarge 2 minutes to a little more. Now, Trooper Paul, do you recognize what's up on the screen as the next exhibit before you?
Yes, I do.
And these are, again, if you could explain to the jury sort of what we're looking at here and how you came to these mileage tools.
Yes. So when I got the directions, it showed that we got from 34 Fairview Road to 1 Meadows Ave. And when I put that address onto Google, it gave me suggested routes. So I put each suggested route on there and the time it took. So I did that with every direction from 1 Meadows Ave to Waterfall to 12 Country Lane, and 12 Country Lane to 1 Meadows Ave, and then 1 Meadows Ave to 345 Country Hill Drive, North Dighton. So I did that for every single one and find suggested routes, so which is labeled in all these boxes here. And then at the bottom here, I did a total distance, and I did a min and the max distance of, and the minimum was 36.1 and the max distance of 38.8.
You're guessing.
All right. So I'm going to ask you to take that down for a minute, and I'll see counsel at sidebar, please.
You're guessing. That's all guesswork. Guesswork. That's not what the car reported. The car didn't report it. Went here and then here and then here. Did it? Did I miss that? That's all guesswork. She also went to Jen McCabe's. Was that on there? She also went to her dad. Was that on there? Did she drive to the hospital? I don't remember. The first time. No, she was taken there. That's all guesswork.
You are unmuted.
That's like planning a trip. How many miles is it going to take?
Now, in addition to those distances there depicted in that exhibit, sir, have you also looked at a mileage or distance between, I'm sorry, the first up there was as far as 34 Fairview Road to 1 Meadows Avenue, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that gave you sort of 3 different routes of travel. Is that correct?
Yes,
So which
And
route
the
did
minute
you
of the
take?
max was 2.2 to 2.6.
correct.
Now, if you were to add that as an additional sort of distance traveled to the 36.1 to 38.8 that you had calculated, how much of a difference does that make?
Between the two min maxes,
Yes.
only 2.7.
And as far as your analysis that we're about to discuss, adding in that approximate 2 points, whatever miles, how much of a difference does
This
that
is
make
so
to your
sloppy.
analysis and ultimate conclusions in regard to the
So
PCH or vehicle
sloppy.
control history data?
For a
As we go on later, but
supposed
so the
analysis.
36 is just within the realm that she could have traveled 36. The odometer mileage is odometer mileage. So 36 is 36. That's what's on the vehicle. So within the realm of possibilities that the vehicle could have traveled 36
Realm of
miles after the
possibility.
2 triggers that are in this vehicle.
Within
Now, with
realm
respect
of
to that
possibility.
minimum and max, as far as the 36.1, 38.8, what, if any, relationship does that have to the difference in the odometer readings that you
That
observed
is
between when you
no
conducted the
proof
braking
of
test and when
anything
you observed these 2 triggering events that you
within
were talking
realm
about
of
at the earlier model?
possibility.
I said no difference. The odometer mileage is the odometer mileage is 36.
And so I guess what I'm asking, sir, is the 36 miles, is that within the range of the 2 triggering events that you were just talking about?
Yes, it was.
Now, as far as within your report and your analysis, did you come up with some sort of a label as far as these 2 different triggering events that you observed?
We still
Yes, I
don't know
did.
what the triggering
And,
event is.
that incorporated the mileage, is that correct?
Correct.
And that was, again, 12,629, is that correct?
Yes.
And then as far as any further label that you put on it, how did you label it?
I labeled them as in when they occurred. One's 12,629A and the other one's 12,629B.
And what date was that?
And with respect to the A and B, which one occurred first?
The A occurred first.
How do you know this?
Okay, may I approach, Ron?
Yes.
You have date, time, location. You have the GPS. This is sloppy.
Sure, showing you another document asking you to just review that before we finish.
Okay.
And do you recognize that?
I do. It's the data chart from the 12,629 miles A chart.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Almost.
And where did this data come
No
from?
objection.
This makes no sense to me at all. Where did the data come from?
And again, if I could just have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
I can go look at my odometer.
May I return this?
Guess
witness,
where
Your
I
Honor?
was
Yes.
36 miles ago.
Information may I
Yes.
Okay, so with the document before you, what's now up on the screen, do you recognize that as what's now been marked as the next exhibit?
I do.
Is if you could describe to the jury sort of what these rows indicate as far as what information is there, and if you could, using the laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, of significance you observed in this as far as 12,629 miles A.
Okay. So each row starting from the top is the vehicle control history time, which is the time that's recorded in the module itself or in the software that gets recorded as each time, and it's recorded as seconds. This time is the time from the start of the key cycle. So it starts off with 652.8, and each one is incremented in approximately half seconds increments up to, let me show it right here where the trigger, this is what's called where the trigger happened. So right here is where it kind of goes from 4.5 to 4.6, then it goes up to 5. Then everything after that is about half second increments from each other. Recorded 10 seconds of time, which is labeled in this one, total time of 10 seconds. And I'll just put time from trigger, just kind of label it back to, here's the trigger right here. And that's the time between each one. Sorry if I can read this right.
You don't describe.
So and right
very
here,
well.
this is the vehicle speeds. The blue is just labeled because that's the speed. Zeros are labeled as a light blue is 0. So if I could read this. So
9
this
miles an
starts
hour.
from, shows that the vehicle is traveling at 9.9 miles per hour. It's slowing down to about 0 right here,
Yeah.
and then stops for that time, and then increases back, speeds backs up to. It goes up to 6.2, and then slows back down to 0, and then back up to 1.7 to, I think it's 8.7. If I can read that right.
Oh, that's dangerous.
And next below 4 is just miles per hour to kilometers. This is the accelerator opening ratio, which is really where this trigger comes from, because the trigger is labeled as the accelerator pedal opening angle is medium to higher immediately after shifting to reverse. All right, they label it as R.
If I could stop you there just
Yep.
for a second, sir. As far as the accelerator pedal opening angle,
Correct.
can you explain to the jury sort of what that term means and what
So she
how
backed
that
up
relates
quickly.
to sort of the operation of the vehicle?
So the accelerator pedal is, the part where everybody puts the foot on and gets the vehicle to go. So the pedal, so this is what's showing how far the pedal was actually pressed by the operator of the vehicle. And that gives you a percentage of that. So if it was, on zeros not pressed and 100%, it's all the way down. So they label the trigger, I think 30% is medium to higher. And this way Toyota labels it. So then that's where you'll see the trigger is around 31.5%. And it also shows start from the beginning, goes from 0 and increases up to 50.5%. And that's 5 seconds. That's only, a little over a second past the trigger. And so it's 50% and then back off, and then
145,
back onto the accelerator again, up to 34%.
30.
Now, as far as this data is concerned for the VCH data from the Toyota tech stream,
And that's in
what, if any,
seconds.
information are you able to glean as far
That's
as
her backing out of
directionality,
her
as far as forward, reverse, left, right, things
garage.
like that from this data?
So
Going forward, and then her
on this label right here,
out.
so it shows the shift position signal. 1 is forward and 2 is reverse. So this right here is showing the vehicle was in drive and going forward, and then the vehicle got shifted into reverse, and then back to drive again.
Now, from your experience and from your training when it comes to interpreting this type of data, do you have any opinion as to sort of what type of maneuver or what type of actions the vehicle was taking during the course of this triggering event?
Yes, this appears the vehicle was slowing down and making a U-turn. Because also the other thing into it, it shows steering signal, and the steering wheel showed that she was driving left and then right and the back left again, and also when she's on the brake switch.
Somebody said she did a 3-point turn
Ms. Gilman, you can
from
take
in
that.
front of the Albert place to turn around and go back
And
to
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
That could be that, and she was upset because John O'Keefe was
Sir, if I
supposed
could
to call her
So
once he got inside, and he never did. And she got mad because
The
she was
document that
being
I've
hit.
just handed you now, do you recognize that?
I'll bet you.
yes,
And what do you recognize that to be?
it's the one, the 12,000, the data chart from my report as labeled as 12,629 miles B.
So that's the second triggering event within this same mileage reading on the odometer, same key cycle.
Correct.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Come up, seek
And
to
she's
do
nodding her
this.
head because I bet you
No
that's what
objection.
it is.
Okay.
I'll bet you that's what it is. But she didn't do what
Okay,
Jen
just
said
one
she
moment, Your Honor.
did. Was first she's here, and then she's here, and then she's here.
May I approach the
She was
witness?
here.
Yes, and for the sake of taking the best use of our time, if they're in evidence for the rest of this afternoon, both of you can then just ask to, just go ahead and put them up and not ask for permission
Thank
this
you.
time.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could.
So when he didn't reply to her, when he didn't respond, she's just supposed to sit
And
down
Mr.
there.
Paul, you recognize what's up on the screen now?
I do.
This is the VCH data chart from that same mileage or the second triggering event as far as 12,629 miles peak, correct?
Correct.
And again, this is in the same odometer range as well as the same key cycle as what was just up on the screen as far as 12,629 miles A, correct?
Yes.
And this occurs after A, is that fair to say?
Correct.
Now, similar to before, when it comes to this VCH data up on the screen, if you could, using the laser pointer, demonstrate to the jury what, if anything, of significance you note with respect to this data.
So for this one, same label as before, as you said. The vehicle control history time is, if I can see that, the trigger time is 1,142.2 seconds after key cycle. And this one shows all the same thing, 10 seconds of data. And what's good, so the vehicle speed on this one shows that she's slowing down. It's 13.7 miles per hour and gets down to 0. Then she's down to 0 for a while, and then the vehicle speed increases up to 24.2 miles per hour at its max speed. Then it goes down to 23.6 as the last two labels.
How dangerous.
And the accelerator pedal angle at this point at key trigger is 36.5 and increases up to 74.5%. And it stays around 74.5%, 74, 73.5, and 74.
Now, that's 74.5% as far as the pressure being applied to the accelerator pedal, correct?
Correct.
And with respect to that 74.5, that's about 3/4 down. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now,
How
with
dare she
regard
accelerate?
to this data from 12629 miles B, what, if anything, are you able to tell from this data as far as when that occurred in relation to 12629A?
So they occurred about approximately 8 minutes. So 1269A occurred 8 minutes prior to the other one, and they both occurred on the same odometer mileage.
Now, with respect to the duration of the data that you were able to obtain from this one, specifically 12629 miles B, what kind of duration of data are we looking at in this particular table or chart?
Say that again.
How long a period of time does this depict?
So this is from the start of key cycle, or this whole just this one?
Just this one.
Okay, so this is 10 seconds of data.
10
And
seconds.
with respect to that 10 seconds of data, as far as the 24.2 miles per hour, when does that occur within the 10 seconds of data for this particular event?
So the 24.2, as I'll point out, is right here. It's actually around the 9-second mark.
Now, similar to the other charts for A that was up on the screen a moment before, is there an indication as far as the accelerator pedal opening angle?
Yes.
And what, if any, significance does that have, or what, if
So she
anything, does that
floored it?
indicate to you from this data on the screen?
It shows that the accelerator pedal angle went up to 74.5%.
So she floored it.
So as out of 100%, it went up to 74.5%.
Now,
got
with
up to a
respect
whopping
to
34 miles an hour.
directionality for this, what, if any, data is contained within this chart in respect to that?
Yeah, so on the bottom row, it shows the steering signal. It should show it slowing down. 0 is like 0.5, 9, 13.5, 13.5. I think it's 13.5, 0, 4.5. And we're talking about steering wheel. How far does the steering wheel move from left to right? So that's the degrees of a steering wheel angle.
Now, as far as when the vehicle is shifted sort of from drive or neutral or park or whatever it was, at some point, is there an indication in this data set on this table as far as when the vehicle was placed into reverse?
Yes.
And how far into this 10-second data set was the vehicle placed into reverse?
At 4 seconds, it's right here.
And so am I correct then that there is a 5-second difference between 4 seconds when it's placed in reverse and 9 seconds approximately when it achieves that 24.2 miles per hour?
Correct.
Now, as far as the 74.5% pressure that's placed on the accelerator pedal, when is that recorded in seconds in relation to the 10-second data set in this table?
74.5 starts at the 8 second.
Now, as far as this trigger is concerned, I understand from your testimony that the maximum speed is 24.2. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what is the vehicle speed recorded at the end of this 10-second data set?
23.6.
Did you write her a ticket?
Now, as far as the vehicle being in sort of different sets, as far as drive, reverse, things of that nature, what, if anything, did you observe within this data set as far as how it is at the beginning, how it changes at all? What happens with regard to that in the data set?
So this one shows that the vehicle was in drive. It starts off in drive. It's slowing down to 0, and it goes to 0, which is neutral. Then goes down. Then it goes into reverse. So it's going straight. It stops. Then it gets placed in reverse, and then goes back. Goes in reverse.
Straight back?
Now, as far
Or does
as
it turn?
the reverse is concerned, you indicated there's also some steering angles that are recorded with this data.
Yes.
And what, if anything, was recorded in this 10 seconds of data? Specifically, I'm asking from the time that it goes to reverse to the end of the set, the end of the data set. What, if anything, do you observe with reference to the change in the steering angle of the steering wheel?
It does not change much. It's only 13. I think the far it goes is left is at 13.5%. So that's only, I mean, if the steering wheel's a circle, the whole circle is 360 degrees. So 13.5% is only, and it's still fairly straight in the vehicle and at 13.5%.
So from this data, this vehicle is backing up in the manner of about 5 seconds or so, in a fairly straight line, and achieves a maximum speed of 24.2 miles per hour, correct?
Correct.
And even at the end of this data set, the vehicle is still traveling approximately 23.6 miles per hour.
Correct.
Now, as far as the small deviations in the steering that you were testifying about, based on your training and experience, what, if anything, would cause that?
Well, the steering wheel was obviously caused by operator traveling only a small amount, about right, and up to here. So it's only just operator steering at those small deviations.
Nothing significant. It wasn't a hard
Your Honor,
right
may I
turn
approach?
or a hard
Yes.
left turn. So I got that right. Can we hear from defense, please?
Let me grab that one.
There you go.
Since we
Oh,
another
good.
document,
Another
you
chart.
recognize that?
I do.
Now, what do you recognize that? to
Clear
be?
as mud.
It's a more of a closer up snippet of that document that I have attached to my report.
And Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Hard practice. Call up the seat to introduce the minutes and next exhibit.
No objection, Your Honor.
You can go ahead and, you can go ahead and publish it if you're inclined to.
It's gobbledygook. It's not showing what you think it's showing.
To recall from what's depicted up on the screen as this next exhibit, if you could, using the laser pointer, just direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, of significance you observe in this portion of the data set.
Yeah, so I circled in here the drop from 24.2 to 23.6, and also the steering wheel signal went from a left at 4.5 to a right 4.5, so positive to a negative. And also the same thing with the cellular opening ratio kind of stays consistent at 74%.
The cat in the road.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Please stop approaching.
Borrow that back.
Yep.
I'm showing you another document. Sir.
Okay.
Do you recognize that?
I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
It's a vehicle control history distance chart. I have attached, I calculated and attached to my report.
And may I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Call up the seat to introduce the minutes and next exhibit.
No objection.
Okay. So go ahead and publish it if you're inclined.
I object, Your Honor. I'm not so inclined.
Paul, do you recognize what's up on the screen? It has now been marked as Exhibit 596.
I do.
And again, if you could, using the laser pointer, let me ask you this first. As far as this table and this information up on the screen, I should have asked you this before. How was this table created, and what, if anything, does this illustrate?
Yeah, so this illustrates from the chart of 12,629B. I started from when the vehicle was placed into reversed, and when it immediately goes from 0 and travels up to 23.6. Just that's like the last part of that last chart we had.
And what, if anything, were you able to do as far as distance travel, and how were you able to determine that?
So I used the this vehicle speeds and the time, and calculated a distance that the vehicle traveled during this time.
And what date was this?
And as far as the total
was
distance
the
traveled
date
from
of
the 0 to the 23.6 at the end, what was the total distance?
I don't see any date.
97.35 feet.
And with respect to the vehicle's maximum speed, as far as 24.2 miles per hour that's recorded within this data set, how much distance had the vehicle traveled prior to achieving that 24.2 mile per hour?
62.51 feet.
62 feet? Where's
Can I
that?
approach this to retrieve, Your Honor?
Yes.
Took her 62 feet to get up to 22 miles an hour.
Now, Trooper Paul, with regard to, based on your training and experience, with respect to this type of data and crash reconstruction in general, this particular set of data from, who's the name again? From 12,629 miles B, what, if any, type of collision is that data set consistent with, and why?
Yeah, there's a point in there where it appears to be consistent with a pedestrian strike.
And why is it that your interpretation of that data you feel is consistent with the pedestrian strike?
It's the sudden change of speed at 24.2 to 23.6 in a half second, while the accelerator pedal is still at a consistent 74%. And also the steering wheel angle goes left at 4.5 degrees and also goes right to 4.5 degrees, and then goes
return.
back to left after that.
Like
So
avoiding a
right
gap
at
road.
that spot is something that's consistent with a pedestrian strike.
Now, with respect to Mr. O'Keefe, the pedestrian in this collision,
Avoiding
what, if
a
any,
motorbike?
data were you able to see or review in relation to your reconstruction analysis in this case?
Say
As far as Mr. O'Keefe, what, if anything, did you learn about his injuries?
Like
They
what
weren't
types of injuries he had?
With a car strike.
Yeah, there were blunt force injuries. I mean, it was abrasions or lacerations, and blunt force injuries.
And the injuries that you observed or that you were informed about, that you learned this from the medical examiner, is that correct?
Correct.
And with respect to the injuries that Mr. O'Keefe was recorded as having sustained, according to the medical examiner, what, if any, relationship did those injuries have to you in relation to a pedestrian collision?
Sorry, say it again.
As far as the injuries that you were informed by the medical examiner that Mr. O'Keefe had sustained,
Yes.
what, if any, relationship did those injuries have in relation to a pedestrian collision?
They are consistent with a pedestrian collision.
And how so?
Due to, I mean, we can break down each injury to the arm, with the lacerations of the arm from the tail light, the dent where the scratches for his hand could be. Those are something that would be consistent with this, in this particular case, with striking the Lexus.
Now, specifically with reference to this case, what, if any, analysis did you conduct with regard to kinematics?
Yes, I did a kinematics analysis in my report. Kinematics deals with the aspect of motion.
And I'm sorry, if you could expound upon that just a little bit and explain to the jury sort of what a kinematics analysis is.
So kinematics analysis is, like I said, it deals with the aspects of motion. Pedestrian crashes get labeled in certain types of how they interact. So in this particular case, I kind of labeled it as a forward projection crash with a side swipe. And what I mean by forward projection means that when a pedestrian gets struck by a vehicle, well, basically their principal impact forces are above the pedestrian center of gravity, as in this case where you get the higher back of the vehicle. When you get struck by something like that, it projects
It's
you
only
forward
4 foot high.
in the direction of the vehicle.
Only 4
And in
foot
this
high.
situation where he gets more struck through the side of the vehicle on the taillight area, that it projected him to forward and then to the left due to this more of a side swipe manner.
Now, with respect to you mentioned the height of the vehicle, as far as the shape of the back of the vehicle, what, if any, relationship does that have in regard to you sort of labeling this as a forward projection / side swipe collision?
Yeah, due to it being pretty flat, it's not the front of the vehicle where you have the hood and the pedestrian staying above the hood. It's the back of the vehicle. It's pretty flat and it's pretty higher up.
Now, with respect, you also made aware through your review of the medical examiner's report that there was injury to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head.
Yes.
Are you gonna
And
explain
based
this
on
one
your
too?
training experience in particular to pedestrian
Who's gonna explain
collisions,
this one too?
what, if any, significance did that have in relation to your opinion as to how Mr. O'Keefe interacted with the defendant's vehicle?
So when you look at the damage, he would have interacted with that left side of the vehicle. And when he got struck by the vehicle on the left side, it would have caused his vehicle to rotate kind of counterclockwise. And then when that rotation, he could turn it into his back, and his back could have struck the ground. I noted at the scene that there was asphalt curbing, which could have somewhere he could have struck his head in there, or somewhere along any of the pavement would have caused damage.
Not dead.
Most forward projection crashes have damage on both sides of the body.
Why is that?
Due to them get projected forward. So they get hit from behind, they would have damage to the back, and then when they get projected forward, they get damage to the front. So, I mean, in this case, he got projected and got spun counterclockwise due to where he got impacted the vehicle.
Yeah, right. Won't leave a word of it.
Now, with regard to the vehicle speeds, kinematically speaking, from your analysis in respect to that, what, if anything, can you say in relation to, just in general terms, as far as the pedestrian collision is concerned, how much of that vehicle speed would a pedestrian be assuming in the context of a pedestrian collision with forward projection?
Forward projection will have almost 100% speed post-impact. And more, like I said, in this case, it's more the fact that he didn't get 100%, like his center of mass didn't strike the vehicle, so he would not have been thrown 100% of the vehicle speed post-impact. His right side would have sustained the vehicle speed, and that would cause him to spin out. So as opposed to traditional forward projection, if he was right there in the middle of the vehicle, he would have got projected forward, and he would have sustained, his full body would have sustained the vehicle speed.
Is that abnormal as far as the sort of forward projection type of pedestrian collision? And what I'm going to ask is
any of it.
specifically to not having any contact with sort of the bottom of the vehicle or being run over or something like that. Can you expound upon that a little?
Yeah, due to the side swipe manner that projected him off to the left, it wouldn't show that he would have been, the car would have ran over him and traveled over him. Like traditional.
Yeah,
The car would-
I'm going to ask you to slow down just a
Sorry.
little bit.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, so due to the situation in this scene where he got projected to the left and by rotated, it would have rotated away from the vehicle, and his body would not have traveled under the vehicle as you do in a lot of traditional forward projection crashes. The vehicle would get tracked forward ahead of the vehicle, and that vehicle could possibly travel over that pedestrian.
So that is not what you found in this particular pedestrian collision, correct?
Correct.
I know you've mentioned it a couple of times, but if I could ask you to just expound a little bit when you're talking about center of mass and how that relates between sort of a pedestrian and a vehicle in a pedestrian type collision.
So pedestrians, almost every object has a center mass. Pedestrians is the same. So a pedestrian center mass is essentially obviously the half the body, and you would also put down is around the chest area, just below the chest area would be a center of mass for a pedestrian, and they all range based on height and body shape.
And so where on someone's body typically would a center of mass be located?
Usually just around the chest area or just below the chest area.
Now, if I could turn your attention, Trooper Paul, back to February 1st of 2022, when you were at the Canton Police Department. You mentioned that, or you testified earlier at some point that you went outside to an asphalt roadway surface and conducted some forward acceleration and rear acceleration braking tests, correct?
Correct.
Now, in addition to that, what, if any, other testing did you do with respect to that vehicle on that particular date in that location?
We checked the cameras, and we did backup visibility analysis with the cameras in the vehicle.
And again, if you could, just in general terms, first, just describe for the jury, when you say visibility analysis, typically speaking, what are you doing in a visibility analysis?
In the visibility analysis, we are trying to see what an operator would see in their vehicle. Looking for, in this particular case, we were trying to see if the operating vehicle would be able to see a pedestrian behind the vehicle. And also in this, where we have backup cameras, we're trying to look at the cameras and see what would the cameras pick up as we go into reverse.
And in fairness to the defendant, at this particular time when this visibility analysis was conducted, it was during the daytime, is that correct?
That's correct.
Your understanding of the crash is that it occurred at night, correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as a visibility analysis, typically, would you be looking to recreate as close as you can to the conditions at the time that the collision occurred?
In most typical cases, yes.
And why were you not able to, were you able to do that in this case?
No.
We were not.
And why?
Due to was most, like I said, it's mostly done when we're trying to see what a pedestrian an operator would see a pedestrian. It's mostly done because it's an accident, but not at times when it's like an intentional act, visibility is not an issue in this situation. We were just want to make sure that the cameras worked and the backup sensors all worked in the vehicle.
Now, as far as
Because they believe she
this
did it on
particular
purpose.
visibility analysis that was
So
conducted
it
in
wasn't
this
an
case,
issue in their mind.
how, if at all, was that memorialized?
It was recorded when the crime scenes. Trooper recorded it.
Come on, Lally.
My apologies. Before I get to that, sir,
Okay.
I can turn your attention just back to the text stream just for a moment. And Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Lally, I'm not buying any of it. None of it. This whole day has been a waste because I don't believe anything.
So I'm showing you a series of 7 photographs to ask you to look at those. And just, first, I'm just going to ask you generally if you recognize those.
It doesn't look like the fence gets up very from.
Yes.
And what do you recognize those to be?
It's the inside of the vehicle. Appears to be taking out the showing that taking out the infotainment system.
The what system?
Infotainment system.
We got a big
And
twang there.
the last photograph there, what, if anything, does that depict, sir?
That is the module for the infotainment system.
And what, if any, involvement did you have in respect to this investigation in regard to the infotainment system?
I didn't have anything. That was Trooper Nick Marino's did the infotainment system in this vehicle.
And you indicated earlier in your testimony that you had training as it relates to Burla, correct?
Correct.
And what, if any, relationship does Burla have with respect to the infotainment system?
They have tools to forensically diagnose the infotainment systems.
And if you know, are you familiar with whether or not that was able to be accomplished in this particular case?
It was not.
And do you know why not?
Because they had to go to, I think Burla didn't have the equipment, so they went to a.
Sustain.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Now, as far as those photographs, they are an accurate portrayal of what you observed in the vehicle during the time that you were conducting your testing.
Yes.
Your Honor, I'll seek to introduce them as the next 7 exhibits.
Any objection, Mr. Jackson?
I'm sorry, I was writing a note. What are those 5 photographs?
7.
7.
No objection.
Infotainment. He's from Southern Boston. South Boston accent. Infotainment.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could just follow.
Yes.
Now, Ms. Gilman, if I could have the photograph labeled BEP2. And Trooper Paul, do you recognize what's up on the screen and is now been marked as Exhibit 597?
Yes,
And what part of the vehicle are we looking at in this photograph?
that's the steering wheel.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have BEP3. And Trooper Paul, do you recognize what's now up on the screen and is marked as Exhibit 598?
Yes, I do.
And if you could, using the
Is that
laser
your-
pointer, direct
your
the jury's
screen
attention
thing?
to what, if anything, of significance you observed in this part of the photograph.
That is the infotainment system.
Oh,
And as far as the infotainment system, when you were operating that vehicle, what, if anything, was displayed on that screen within the infotainment system?
with the vacuum phone?
If you were in drive, it just had, the radio navigation stuff. But if you're in verse, that's where the backup cameras and sensors would be.
So then what was on the backup camera?
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have BEP4, sorry. And Trooper Paul, do you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 599?
Yes, I do.
And what, if anything, are we looking at in this?
That's the push button start, the ignition.
And so that's how this vehicle is started and stopped, essentially, as a push button start. Is that correct?
As
Correct.
long as you had a key on you.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have BEP22. And Trooper Paul, do you recognize what's up on the screen as now marked as Exhibit 601?
Yes.
If you could, using the laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, you observe of significance in this.
Yes, that's the infotainment system. It's on, shows satellite here. Looks like that's the navigation.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down.
Well, where's the backup? Where's the reverse view?
Now, if I could take you back just for a second to the VCH data and the kinematics of what you were testifying about just a moment ago. You had mentioned that with respect to the injury to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head that is consistent or could have been caused by striking his head on part of the pavement or the curbing, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as your training and experience in pedestrian collisions that you've responded to and investigated on prior occasions, as far as weather, as far as the coldness of the ground being frozen, what, if any, impact could that have as far as in relation to the injuries to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head?
Objection.
Sustained.
Now, as far as the visibility
He's not
analysis
qualified to
that you were
answer that.
conducting on February 1st, you mentioned that that was memorialized with photographs as well as video. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the video that was taken, sir, was that in the interior of the vehicle, exterior of the vehicle, or both?
I believe it might have been just the interior.
Approach, Your Honor.
Yes.
Am I the only one that feels this is tedious?
Don't, sir, I'm showing you 2 discs.
Okay.
You recognize those?
Yes.
And those are the recordings of the visibility or the braking and acceleration tests from February 1st, both interior of the vehicle, exterior of the vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm obviously introducing the next exhibits.
No objection.
Before we get to those videos, Trooper, may I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I've got more stretching to do.
So I'm showing you another series of, I believe, 8 photographs. That's actually what we go and look up when you're finished.
I have a feeling the defense's experts are going to blow him out of the water. Your interpretations are way off, mister.
And do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs, Trooper?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
Those are photos from the backup cameras and sensor tests.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going to seek to introduce the minutes and next exhibits.
Okay.
No objection.
Well, there he is, looking all nice and sharp.
Trooper, if you could, please describe to the jury what we're looking at in this photograph that's now been marked as Exhibit 606.
Yes, this is the view from the operator as they would turn around and look to the back of the vehicle.
Got a lot of blind spots there. That's pretty wide.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2616. And Trooper Paul, do you recognize what's up on the screen and has now been marked as Exhibit 610?
Yes.
And can you please describe to the jury what, if anything, we're looking at here?
Yes, that's the view inside the vehicle, showing the infotainment system and the backup cameras on it.
Now, as far as the backup cameras on this particular vehicle,
faded.
what kind of view was able to be portrayed, or what did you observe on the screen when you placed the vehicle on the first?
Yes, so this has this straight backup camera and also has a 360 overhead view of the vehicle.
Why did they take the infotainment center
And as
out?
far as the cameras within this vehicle are concerned, are we talking about one single camera, or how many cameras are encapsulating this 360-degree camera angle view?
It has the front and the sides and the rear cameras.
Now, if you could, using the laser pointer, just draw the jury's attention, direct the jury's attention to where you're talking about as far as the screen is concerned, depicting that camera angle view.
Okay. So the one on the left, that's the backup camera, and the one in the middle here would be the 360 overhead camera.
Now, in addition to what's depicted on the screen right now, as far as the vehicle on the 360 overhead, as the vehicle travels, what, if anything, in addition, is depicted on that particular portion of the screen as far as the 360 overhead?
It shows a sensor, and also when that sensor shows up in the area where the object that it gets closer to.
And the sensor that you're talking about, how is that depicted on the screen?
It's a little red like blip or little bar that would show up on the camera
If
itself.
you're close to something, is that what
Is
that
that
is?
something that appears as you approach an object from either in front or behind or something else?
Correct. As you approach the object, the bar will, blink and will go get faster as you get closer to the object.
Okay.
Now, with respect to the system overall, in addition to the visual cues depicted up on the screen, what, if any, auditory cues are also part of this system?
It will beep at you, and it will, as you get closer to the object, it will beep faster as you get closer to it.
And as far as getting closer to an object, the beeping that you're talking about, it increases in speed or rapidity. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Correct.
And
I think he just said that.
how does it? What, if anything, does it do as far as the volume of the beeping that you?
I guess it would increase as it would get faster.
So it gets faster and it gets louder as you get closer
Yep.
to an object, correct?
Yep.
Now, with respect to sort of the middle of the screen here, up on the dashboard, what, if anything, do you observe there? Could you direct the jury's attention to what, if any, devices are up there right now?
Yes. So that right here, the this blue device, that's the V-Box Sport that attached to the windshield.
So that's something that you attached to the vehicle. It's not necessarily something that was in the vehicle when you began to operate it around.
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2618. And Trooper Paul, if you could describe to the jury, or using the laser pointer, if you could draw the jury's attention to what, if anything, is significant to observe in this portion or closer up image of the screen in the center console.
Yeah. So this this is one on the left here is the backup camera, and the one in the middle is the 360 overhead camera. The bars and lines are showing the path of the vehicle.
Okay.
Is that the bar that says it's
Ms.
getting
Gilman, you can
close to
take this down.
something?
I may have a moment, John.
Yes.
Oh, come on, Lally.
Now, Trooper Paul, as far as during this visibility analysis that you conducted, you testified earlier that you were primarily concerned with sort of whether or not the cameras and the auditory and visual cues worked properly with this vehicle and this system, correct?
Yes.
And during the course of your running these sort of forward and back reverse acceleration braking tests, as well as visibility analysis, what, if anything, did you observe with relation to the functionality of the cameras and the visual and auditory cues?
Everything seemed to be working properly.
Now, when you were operating the vehicle on February 1st and you shifted the vehicle into reverse, what would then sort of occur with the screen in the center of the dashboard?
It would change from the navigation to the backup cameras.
And how long a period of time did that take as far as you shifted from drive to reverse on a number of
Immediately.
different occasions while you were conducting your test, correct?
Yes.
And so how long a period of time are we talking about between the time that you shift the vehicle from drive or another gear to reverse for those screens to then
Within a
display
second.
both the rear backup camera and the 360 overhead view?
It's fairly instantaneous, very quick.
Now, at some point during the course of the visibility analysis specifically, what, if anything, did you place behind the vehicle during your visibility analysis?
It was like a punching bag dummy.
And where did you place that in relation to the vehicle?
Along the right rear.
And as far as that punching bag dummy was concerned, about how far up off the ground was the top of that?
I'm not exactly sure the exact height of it. Maybe my height or taller.
And with respect, your height, sir, how tall are you?
5'6".
So it was at least 5'6", if not taller. Is that correct?
Correct.
And with respect to that, placing it behind the vehicle, after it was placed behind the vehicle, at some point, were you inside of the vehicle?
Yes.
And when you were inside of the vehicle and that was outside of the vehicle, what, if any, visual observations were you able to make with respect to its placement? And it's in the right rear passenger side of the vehicle, is that correct?
Correct.
But what, if any, observations were you able to make with respect to that item or exemplar that was placed out there?
It would have been invisible in the cameras.
Now,
Not if it was in the blind spot.
with respect to the visibility
What's wrong with
analysis
that?
that was conducted with respect
Every
to,
car has a blind spot.
that, let me ask you this first. When I say exemplar, so exemplar pedestrian, Can you explain sort of what that term means and how it relates to a visibility analysis?
So an exemplar pedestrian is just like you said, we used a punch bag dummy. It was something that we used in place of a pedestrian to act like a pedestrian.
Now, when that exemplar pedestrian was placed in the rear passenger side area of the vehicle, what, if any, obstructions did you observe as far as just from a visual perspective, sort of turning your head or looking, or cameras or anything else, as far as where that exemplar was placed?
There were no obstructions.
Now, if that exemplar was placed directly next to the vehicle versus feet away from the vehicle, what, if any, difference did you note as far as the visibility was concerned?
Yeah, so if it was placed right next to the vehicle, it'd be blocked by the back pillar of the vehicle. If you place it like 5 feet away, you would be able to see the dummy and the cameras, and also in the side mirrors.
So at a distance of at least 5 feet, it was fully visible from where you sat in the vehicle?
Yes.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, if we could, I would ask, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure what exhibit numbers they are, but the 2 videos that were just introduced.
Okay.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have the exterior video first.
And just for the record, they are 604 and 605 now. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam. Ms. Gilman, if you could pause there for a moment. Trooper Paul, with respect to, just for orientation purposes, if you could explain to the jury sort of where we are in relation to the Canton Police Department and where it was that you conducted these tests.
Yeah, so this is a view from the back of the Canton Police Department. So as you look at the Canton Police Department, we'd be on the left side of the Canton Police Department.
And as far as the vehicle in question, if you could, using the laser pointer, just direct the jury's attention to where that is and sort of where it's going to be in relation to the camera angle.
The vehicle is right here.
Ms. Gilman, if you could press play.
Is the vehicle going to go 24 miles an hour? Guess not. You know, you're driving a dangerous vehicle. It doesn't have a rear or right tail light. Did you know that?
If I could ask you to pause there for just a moment. Trooper Paul, during these testing that you were conducting here with the acceleration, reverse braking, all of those things, the highest speeds that you recorded during the course of that testing was 30 miles an hour, is that correct?
Yes.
And the highest speed that was contained within that VCH data for the second, or the B of those 2 data sets, what was the highest miles per hour there?
At 24.
Now, with respect to the braking in this vehicle, what, if anything, was this vehicle equipped with?
Had ABS brakes, anti-lock brake system.
And with relation to anti-lock brake system, or ABS, what, if any, relationship does that have with regard to braking and what is then visible on the pavement?
It doesn't leave visible tire marks.
And why is that, sir?
Due to when the brakes, as the brake is about to lock up,
That's why there
it
was no
transfers
tire
over
mark.
to another tire. So it kind of
Oh.
rotates between tires. So the tires never fully lock up and slide across the pavement.
Now, in relation to ABS not leaving marks on the pavement, what, if any, relationship does that have as far as the sound difference between ABS brakes and non-ABS brakes?
Yeah, the sound would be different because you would hear a car sliding across the pavement as opposed to just hard braking and engine slowing down.
As far as sort of screeching of braking and tire coming to a brake, what would you expect to hear with respect to ABS braking?
There would be no screeching of the tires.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could press play from here.
Are we going to watch the whole 5 minutes of this thing? I guess so. Because Lally likes to waste time. Car's just sitting there. Prosecutor Botox is at it again. Are you asking, baby? Okay. You want to go outside? Then I'll give you your medicine. You want to go outside? Are you stressing? my phone. Where did I put my phone? Did I have it in here? I think I did, and it doesn't matter. Nope, didn't matter. There's Chewy. There's your night-night cookie. Should call it your nighttime cookie. Because I don't expect you to go night-night just yet. I had a bit of a glitch. So sorry. I'll try to fix that. I thought I did something and I didn't. I'll have to see if I can. Edit needed at 2:07. I'm just,
Thank you. Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I publish the other video of the interior?
we
of the
have
vehicle?
to.
Yes.
How many minutes is it?
Please come in if you could just pause it briefly. Again, Trooper Paul, with reference to what's up on the screen, if you could, just using the laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to the screen in the center of the dashboard, and just as far as what different parts of the screen are visible here.
So right here is the reverse camera, 360 camera.
And as far as this particular portion of the interior of the vehicle, are we looking at what was done with regard to acceleration or braking tests, or are we looking at the visibility?
This is the visibility analysis.
Ms. Gilman, if you could please press.
Okay, we're backing up. Let's run over that guy and see what happens. That accomplished what? I think I see a flashing light.
All right, if you could pause it there, Mr. If I could ask you to just bring it back just a couple of seconds.
I think I saw a flashing light right back here,
Pause it there.
right there.
Trooper Paul, as far as the, this is a closer up image of the screen that was visible in the center of the dash of the vehicle, is that correct?
Yes.
And if you could, using the laser pointer, this may be a little difficult to see. If you could, using the laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, you observe on this screen while the vehicle's in reverse now, correct?
Correct.
If you could direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, you observe on this screen as the vehicle's in reverse with the exemplar pedestrian behind.
Yes. So this screen has now changed to a park assist screen, and it now shows a sensor for the back of the vehicle. And also same here, the sensor starts popping up in a yellow
I saw that.
line for behind the
I
vehicle.
didn't see the other.
And then in the actual camera view,
The extra camera view shows that's where our punching bag dummy was, and also shows where the
You can
sensor's backed up to
barely
on the bottom here.
and And Ms. Gilman, for the record, this is about 34 seconds in. If you could press play from here.
No, you can't have brownies. I shouldn't have them either.
Now, Trooper Paul, at some point over the course of your investigation, over the course of this case, did you become aware of ring videos from Mr. O'Keefe's residence at 1 Meadows Avenue?
Yes.
And specifically, have you had occasion to see a video depicting the defendant backing out of the garage as snow was coming down?
Yes.
I'm going to allow it.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could publish to the jury with the witness on the stand, Exhibit 6, video number 153.
Objection, may we approach?
Yes.
Beyond the scope, maybe? Maybe?
Because the lawyers and I are staying, and Trooper, I'm going to ask you to stay. Sometimes when we take these breaks, when I talk to the lawyers and then don't schedule you, it's because we have to do things in the case to facilitate getting this case to you now as efficiently as possible. Next week, we will be in session here Monday. Tuesday's going to be a full day of the lawyers and I with witnesses to make sure that the case is ready for you to wrap up. So Tuesday you will be off, we'll be working. Wednesday is a federal holiday, so court is not in session on Wednesday. We'll have a full day Thursday and half a day Friday. It's a little different than we looked at, but I am assured that we are still on schedule to getting the case to you folks to begin your deliberations sometime that last week. Okay, so we appreciate everybody's patience. I appreciate the lawyers now really trying to work to get this case to you as efficiently as possible. So those cautions: do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know. We will see you on Monday. Monday will be a full day. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much.
All rise for the court, please.
You are muted.
Here and follow me, please.
Alan Gaddison don't look very happy. Don't mind John's brother. He never looks happy.
Thank you. Be seated. Court continues.
All right. So, Trooper, we're going to have a voir dire of you, sir. Mr. Lally's going to ask you some questions. Mr. Jackson's going to ask you some questions. You'll be shown a video.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Lally.
Now, Trooper Paul, as I was asking you before, with respect to have you had occasion to see a ring video from Mr. O'Keefe's house at 1 Meadows Avenue depicting the defendant or the defendant's vehicle backing out of a garage while snow was falling?
Yes.
Now, in addition to that, as you've already testified to, you made observations of the defendant's vehicle in the Canton Police Department garage on February 1st. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, may we play the video at this time?
Yes.
Your Honor, to save time, I'll stipulate to the video.
I want to see it for purposes of this voir dire. And in fact, I'd like to see the version that the defendants have with the focusing in on the tire.
Understood.
Both. Go ahead, Ms. Gilman, you show yours, and then I'm going to ask for the defense.
153. Now, Trooper, from your observations from this video, at some point, this vehicle either comes close or makes contact with Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, in addition to your observations of this video and your observations of the defendant's vehicle, at some point, have you also seen photographs of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle?
Yes.
And is your understanding that those photographs of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle were taken by State Police Crime Scene Services on February 3rd? Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, with reference to your observations in this vehicle, what I'm going to ask you is in regard to the significance significance of the impact between the two vehicles. In respect to Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, what, if anything, did you observe on his vehicle at that time?
At the photos or now?
Right now.
Oh, right now. There was snow on the vehicle.
And then with respect to the contact between the defendant's vehicle and victim Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, what, if anything, did you observe to occur with relation to the snow based on the significance of the impact between the two?
The snow doesn't move.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could press play at this time.
All right. Can I see?
Hold on a sec. Oh, sorry, Your Honor. You will notice she got this far back. That's the tire. The bumper would extend a little bit further back. So she didn't touch here, she touched here. And they don't really emphasize that later when they say, oh, you know, there's nothing on him. But they were looking here. They weren't looking back here, which is where she would have made contact. And since we're here, notice there's nothing wrong with her taillight here. If it's, how did the guy put it? If it's cracked, there might be a little piece missing somewhere. But that's all. This does not look anything like how they're saying it looked in the Sally Port. You know what? Since we're here, can I remember how to do that? That's not it. What's that? No, that's a snip. That's a that. It's not what I want. I don't think that's what I want. That's what I wanted. Got a picture of it now. Thank you.
See the other video, please. Yes, I think it's on, I know it's in evidence, but I think it's on your computer, your hard drive.
Yep, there it is. It's going to hit right about here. Yep. It's more like in the middle of the back. And boom. I moved it forward.
All right. Thank you. Okay, could you turn the lights on, please?
Your Honor, if I could, there's just two photographs that I'd like to for
Sure.
purposes. Ms. Gilman, if I could have what's now been marked as Exhibit 549.
And before you do that, What is the exhibit we just saw through your IT person? What
Your Honor, it's
number?
the same exhibit. It has not been enhanced in any way. It was just magnified for purposes of this, of showing it. In other words, the magnification is not embedded in the video. It's the
Okay.
same video.
Okay,
We just magnified it.
okay.
Here you go.
All right, thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Lally.
And Trooper, do you recognize what's up on the screen now?
Yes.
And what are we looking at, and which area of the vehicle are we looking at?
It's the rear, sorry,
This is where the
John
impact would have
O'Keefe's
been.
car.
The driver's side, is that correct?
Yes.
And what, if any, relationship does this portion of the vehicle we're looking at here have in relation to the video that we just watched?
It was faced, well, kind of you see it
All right,
from.
what was the answer? I
It
didn't
was-
hear you.
Sorry, it was faced kind of the same way you see the back left rear corner of the vehicle as you do in this picture here.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have what's now been marked as Exhibit 559. And sir, is this the same driver's side rear of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle?
And having said
Yes, it
what I
is.
did,
Now,
there's a
as far
spot
as
here.
your observations of these photographs, what, if any, damage did you observe to Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle in either the last exhibit or this exhibit itself?
There was no damage.
I think.
Now,
there's
as
one
far
spot
as
here.
the impact, let me ask, as far as the damage that you observed to the taillight area of the defendant's vehicle, what, if any, opinion do you have as to the amount of force necessary in order to cause that damage?
Objection.
We need a foundation on this.
So, Trooper, over the course of your, I'm sorry, how many crashes have you investigated over your time with the cars unit?
I've been primarily on 196 crashes.
And I know I'd asked you before about pedestrian crashes.
How much
Fair
force
to say
would it
most of the
take to
remainder,
move
if not all the remainder, involves vehicles colliding with other
6,000
vehicles.
pound vehicle.
Correct.
Now, with respect to that experience in
Something like
relation to vehicle crashes, what, if any, training or knowledge do you have in regard to sort of physical forces of vehicles in a collision sequence and what kind of damage you would anticipate?
So obviously, the higher the speed, the more damage. The lower speed, the less damage.
So
Um,
low speed.
And what, if any, from the observation that you made in that video and the observations that you made of the defendant's vehicle, what you observed in the video, is that consistent with the damage that you observed to the defendant's vehicle?
Objection.
So I'm going to allow this for voir dire. I just need to hear this information.
Understood, Your Honor. Thank you.
It is not consistent with the tail light in this collision.
And why not?
For one thing, the collision, the tail light is, what I say, 42 to 50 inches off the ground. So that vehicle would have to have damage 42 to 50 inches off the ground because they would have had to contact each other in the same distance from the ground, and there's no damage to that vehicle. So if the tail light breaks, it should leave some sort of scratching, maybe a dent, something on some sort of damage to that vehicle should have occurred.
And with respect to, I think you just answered it. So as far as Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, what kind of damage would you expect from an impact significant enough to break the plastic on the tail light of the defendant's vehicle?
It'd be probably higher speed than what we saw.
For purposes of voir dire, I need to hear all of this, Mr. Jackson. Go ahead.
A higher speed than what we probably would saw in there. If it's not, it was minimal, maybe it would crack a tail light or something like that, but it wouldn't. I mean, the damage is different. And also, we have a bumper that's also in the way too.
And to that point, Trooper, when it comes to a bumper, from a functional standpoint, what is a bumper and what does it do with respect to a vehicle and a collision sequence?
The bumper is, it's basically meant as another cushion to absorb the impact to another vehicle from one vehicle to another vehicle. And it kind of sticks out to kind of also preserve whatever, tail lights and everything else and the damage on top of it.
So in order, from your experience as far as responding and investigating collisions, specifically collisions between motor vehicles, the speed that you observed the defendant's vehicle traveling in that video, what, if any, relationship does that have specifically as to the bumper, as to the damage that you observed to the defendant's vehicle?
So if you look at the defendant's vehicle, there is a scratch mark that is along the left side of, starts from her bumper around the rear. That could be consistently with his hitting his bumper. That would be around the same height level. He has a like little ridge there on his bumper. So that bumper could have been hit that little ridge. And also the bumper in itself, and here is a different material. Hers is a little lighter, like a glossy colored paint. This is more a duller flat finish. So it might have some, why it would show up on her bumper more than it would show up on his bumper.
And finally, sir, in your opinion, the damage to the defendant's taillight is that something that could have occurred or could have been caused by the crash or the contact of the vehicles that you observed in that video?
Objection.
No,
So again, this is voir dire, Mr. Jackson, going in here.
no.
You just
And again,
said
sir, why not?
a cracked tail
For
light.
thing, the bumpers, you have to go push through the bumpers in order to hit the tail light against the other vehicle. And there's no damage to that, significant damage to a bumper in order to push back into the car.
And again, there was no snow on the vehicle. By that, I mean Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle that even came off the vehicle that you observed during the course of that contact between the two vehicles.
That's correct.
I have nothing further on.
All right, Mr. Jackson?
Did you ever put the two cars together?
I did not.
No, you didn't, did you? You never tested whether or not the SUV would match up with the Traverse, did you?
What do you mean?
You just said, oh, look, one of them has matte finish, one of them has glossy finish, so it couldn't have happened, right?
No, I didn't. I'm confused by the question. I'm talking about the tail light. We're talking about the tail light.
Yeah,
Are we talking about tail light? Or are we talking about the bumper?
yeah, we were talking about the taillight.
So one person at a time, you both are talking over each other.
You started talking about the bumpers.
Yes.
You said, well, one has matte finish and one has glossy finish, right?
Yes.
And you said, well, you'd expect one of them to like slide off of each other, and they could have done this and they could have done that, right?
Not slide off each other.
You were suggesting that the two cars wouldn't match up such that the taillight could make contact with any part of the Traverse. That's what you were suggesting.
I'm saying it didn't match up because there's no damage to the Traverse.
You didn't test whether or not the lens, the right rear lens on the SUV could match up to any part of the Traverse, right? And make contact, physical contact with it, right?
When I see a picture of the Traverse,
Yes or no?
when I see the picture
No,
of the
this
Traverse,
is a voir dire. I need the information, Mr.
you're asking me a
Jackson.
question.
Yeah,
I said when I-
yes or no question, Trooper.
I don't think so, but
Mr. Jackson, just for, there's no jury here.
I realize that.
This is for purposes of what I have to rule on. The more information I have, the better off I am in being able to rule on it.
Let me take a breath.
So this is you trying to keep the evidence out. So you want to give me the information.
Understood. Did you or did you not ever do a test where you backed the Lexus up against the Traverse?
we did not.
Did you or did you not ever do a test where you put the two cars together and measured them?
No,
Did you ever measure the taillight of the SUV, the black SUV, against any area on that Traverse?
no,
Did you ever do any force multiplier tests to determine the forces necessary to crack the SUV's convex taillight?
no,
Did you ever do any testing to determine whether or not a plastic taillight, under how much pressure a plastic taillight would need to be subjected before it would crack?
no,
Did you ever do any testing to determine whether or not if a plastic taillight came in contact with a metallic portion of another SUV, whether it would leave any mark?
haven't done any testing. I've seen crashes where headlights have struck other vehicles. That's kind of where the experience comes from.
Fair enough. But I'm guessing that those crashes are probably different speeds and higher speeds. Not this, right?
I've had multiple crashes at different speeds.
So have you ever
Well,
had
yes.
a crash where you've investigated, the Massachusetts State Police has been brought in to investigate a crash where the car was going in reverse at about a half a mile an hour?
Half a mile an hour?
Whatever that was.
Are you saying the SUV Lexus is going half a mile per hour?
Well, you're the reconstructionist. Give me an estimate of how fast you think that SUV was going at the point of contact with the Traverse.
Maybe like 1-2 miles per hour?
Okay, fair enough. Have you ever been called in to a crash to investigate a crash where the cars have collided at 1 mile an hour?
I've had pedestrian crashes that have been at a very low speed.
Okay, that wasn't my question. That wasn't quite my question.
Okay.
My question is, have you been called in to a crash involving two vehicles
Yeah.
that have made contact at about 1 mile an hour?
I have seen testing for vehicles at low speeds. So next time I have been called to a crash, I go to fatality crashes, but I have seen testing for vehicles at low speed impacts,
Okay. How low speed?
like just the bump.
So like this?
Yes.
Did you see any damage?
Yes. All right. Well, minimal damage.
Right. In what circumstance? Minimal damage, like, I don't know, like a cracked taillight.
No, like just a little bit of rub off on the paint.
Right? Or you might see nothing, right?
Yes.
You've certainly seen circumstances in which two cars come in contact and there's absolutely no physical damage to either car, nothing observable, right?
Have I gone to
Sure.
crashes that have seen no physical damage on a car?
Or just in common sense, just everyday life, where one car backs into another car at the Jiffy Lube, makes contact and drives away, and there's no damage.
Not normally. It's usually something with car and car impacts.
Like, what's the something?
A crack or a paint, something chip, scratches.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you put a piece of metal in that scenario, if you put a piece of metal, steel, right,
Uh-huh.
against a piece of plastic, which one do you think is going to give way first?
Plastic.
You'll still see some damage to both vehicles at a speed.
Which one would give way first?
Between metal, depends what speeds.
I'm
And what we're
telling
talking about, you're just saying plastic and metal. You're giving a pretty general, broad plastic and metal
you, Trooper Paul,
analysis here.
you admit, you got to agree with me, that there are circumstances in which low speed, very, very low speed contact between two cars can certainly leave damage on one and not damage on the other, damage on both, or no damage on either one. Observe.
Yes, I just said in that situation where the scratch on the side of her car
Right.
had a scratch mark and his doesn't appear to have anything.
And you said under questioning by Mr. Lally that certain circumstances like this could lead to a lens material, right, plastic material cracking, right?
Say again, like on least.
Just a few minutes ago, Mr. Lally.
I'm trying to answer your question. Sorry. Yes.
Mr. Lally asked you a question a few minutes ago, and you indicated that something might show up on a bumper.
Cracked tail.
Something might, something might, like a taillight, might actually crack, correct? In a low-speed impact.
A taillight might crack in a low speed impact.
Correct.
Yeah, it might crack.
Okay, now, Mr. Lally also said you saw this video where the cars come close to or make contact, right? That's how he worded the question. Remember that?
Come close. Yep.
Which one is it? Did it come close or did it make contact?
I said it might. I don't know if that scratch from the side is. It's something that's consistent with the height of the bumper. Like I said, I didn't measure them side by side, but you can clearly see there's a scratch on the side, and that's something that looks like that would come back. So as I look at the bumper, and I see the bumper, and it has that little divot, and I look at her side of her car with that scratch mark, that kind of lines up a little bit of why that could be where that was from.
I thought you said there was no damage on that car, on the Traverse.
There is no damage, and that's why I went to why there's two different paint materials there, that why one could have showed up on her car because it's that flat, the glossy paint on there, and it could have scratched on it. While you have something that's a little more rougher texture with like a flat, flat color on there that wouldn't leave on there.
So you just described the circumstance in which two cars come in contact, you don't see any observable damage on one, and you do on the other. That's what
I just
described, right?
Yeah, and I suggested that when you asked me that a second ago.
Yeah. With regard to the video, let's get back to the question that I asked, which was, in that video, did the SUV come close to, or did it come in contact with the Traverse?
Again, I don't know, because I'm saying based off the damage that is something consistent with that. So most likely it did come in contact with the bumper to bumper, but I don't know definitively because there is no damage to his car, but it's something that could explain why there's a scratch mark alongside the right rear side of his car, or her car.
Did you see the tire move, sir? Did you see the wheel on the Traverse move in that video?
No, I couldn't see the wheel move.
I beg your pardon?
I didn't see it move. If I did, I didn't observe it moving. If it moved, it moved. I didn't observe it moving. I wasn't looking at the wheel.
When was the first time you saw that video?
I don't really know. It's been a little while,
Well, I don't know what a little while means.
like a year ago, I think.
Okay. So you saw that video a year ago. Did you put anything about that video in your report, which is wherever it is, right here? I'm looking at your entire CARS report.
Yes.
Did you put anything in this CARS report about watching that video?
No, because I watched the video like after the report was done, and I watched it first time on court TV. So
who on court TV during this trial?
like
Prior here.
when it was on TV at some point.
When did you and Mr. Lally have a discussion about you testifying about this video?
That was a couple weeks ago?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand.
A couple of weeks ago?
What's a couple of weeks ago? Is it 10 days ago?
Days ago? 2 weeks ago? I mean, 2 weeks ago? Couple?
Okay.
Two?
Where did you two meet?
At the DA's office.
Was that at your request or was that at Mr. Lally's request?
It was a pre-conference hearing, or pre-trial hearing,
Right. Well, those
or
are
pre-trial conference. Sorry.
done.
So, yes.
We're talking over each other. I'm trying not to talk over you, Trooper.
I'm trying not either.
Let's both try harder.
Okay.
Who set up the meeting?
From my pre-trial.
Yes.
Okay.
Paul.
Adam Lally.
Who was at the meeting?
Right, sitting right here, Lieutenant Tully.
Lieutenant Tully, you, Adam Lally, Laura McLaughlin. I'm guessing Miss Gilman was not there.
She was not there. Correct.
Did Mr. Lally show you this video at that meeting?
Yes.
Did he tell you that he intended to ask you some questions about this video at that meeting?
Yes.
Did he ask you whether or not you could render an opinion as to whether or not the impact that you saw or lack thereof, whatever the case may be, was consistent or inconsistent with damage to the taillight?
Yes.
Did you tell him that you would give him such opinion if called upon at trial?
Yes.
Did anybody take any notes?
I don't know.
Were you taking notes?
Yes.
Where are those notes, Trooper Paul?
I think I just, well, no, it's not on this specifically, but just, make sure I had, my everything checks and balance. And for what I want to talk about, what we're going to talk about.
Make sure you had
My
what?
checks and balances, sorry.
Checks and balances.
Just make sure I'm more on the same page of what we understand, what's going on in the trial.
You want to make sure that you're on the same page with Mr. Lally about what's going on in trial. Right?
Yes.
All right. Did Mr. Lally take notes?
I have no idea.
You were watching him. I mean, was he writing something down?
I wasn't paying attention to his note taking.
Miss McLaughlin was there. Was she taking notes?
I don't know.
You didn't see her either?
I don't know if people were taking notes, writing stuff down, or what they're writing stuff down in relation to our conference.
Did you give him an opinion? We've asked whether or not you were asked to give an opinion, and you said, yes, 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 I was.
Yep.
Did you give an opinion at that meeting about whether or not you believe, in your opinion, the contact between the SUV and the Traverse, the Lexus and the Traverse, could result in the damage to the taillight?
Yes.
What did you tell him in the meeting?
What we talked about already on the stand here.
Okay. So what you related to him was exactly what you've relayed in this court.
Yes.
And he told you that he was going to ask, I'm going to ask you to look at the video, correct?
Yes.
You're going to be asked a series of questions about that video, correct?
He told me the video and he said, okay, this is the video. This is what they think the taillight was broken. And these are the pictures of his car that they take. So they asked my opinion on, do you think that's where a taillight would be broken?
And he told you, you need to make sure that you tell the jurors that couldn't have happened in this impact, right?
He didn't tell me that. Make sure jurors. I mean, that's my opinion on. It doesn't appear to happen in that video.
Did he tell you that it would be helpful to the prosecution if you said that it would be, that it was inconsistent with the taillight breaking?
Objection.
Good.
I'm going to allow it. Did he tell you it would be helpful to the case if you said that?
No,
But you knew it would be, right?
I'm just stating what I saw on my professional opinion on what it is.
Got it.
If it looked like it was consistent, I would say it's consistent. If it wasn't consistent, it's not consistent. I'm not going to.
I'm sure that's what you would say.
Okay, so comments are not appropriate for the jury. They're also not very good for me, Mr.
Understood.
Jackson.
Understood, Your Honor. Did you formalize your new opinion? Because this is a new opinion, right? You've never been asked this opinion before.
Yes.
Did you formalize this new opinion in any kind of report or memorialize it in any way?
No.
Did Mr. Lally ask you to create a report of some sort that you could then turn over to the defense so that we would know that you have a new opinion that you're going to testify about?
No.
Did you save those notes that you took about making sure that you were on the same page as Mr. Lally?
Yeah. I saved mine.
Where are they?
They're my report.
They're in your report?
Yeah, as I was writing a report, I just kind of highlighted stuff that I want to make sure I memorize and remember my report.
Okay. I'm talking about notes specifically about this video, seeing this video and rendering a new opinion about this video.
No, I didn't have notes specifically about this video. I didn't write anything down saying I must do this on this video.
Did you write anything down about the new opinion that you had come up with related to this video?
No, I did not.
I'm just moving on.
Yep.
Can't they show it?
And your opinion ultimately that you imparted to Mr. Lally in that meeting was that the car did not move and the snow did not move, correct?
Correct.
I think that's all I have.
All right. Did you want to follow up at all, Mr. Lally?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right. So, Trooper, you are all set for today. We will see you Monday morning.
Thank you.
Okay? All right. So you're moving to exclude this. I'll hear you, Mr. Jackson.
Your Honor, it's very clear that this is a blatant violation. Commonwealth has at least the obligation to provide us with any new opinions that any expert's going to testify to on direct examination. They've known about this witness for not months, for a year, for a couple of years. They've known exactly what this witness has memorialized in his official report. They knew that the only thing that we had was the official report. They met with him 2 weeks ago. This has become a pattern of conduct by the Commonwealth over and over and over. We're finding these witnesses getting on the stand, finding out that there's been a sort of preemptive strike in some sort of a prep interview where they're coming up with new opinions, new conclusions, new facts. It happened with Jennifer McCabe. This new fact about coming up, going to Michael Lank's house. It happened with Officer Sarah, coming up with a new determination about what was said or not said at the scene that we had never heard before. That was also a prep session of some sort, or I believe it was. And then this witness, literally, it's not even like just, was it light out or was it dark out? This is a completely new opinion based on evidence that we presented, both in open, or talked about in opening statement and have presented variously throughout this trial. And this officer gets on the stand and now has a new central opinion about whether or not we're right and that taillight lens could be cracked. That's something that should have at least been reduced to writing. And even if it was reduced to writing, it should have been excluded because it's a discovery violation. It's late. We don't have time to prepare for it. And we're caught off guard. I use the word at sidebar ambush, and I know that rankles the court, and the court doesn't like it, but that's exactly what it feels like.
Well, that's been used both ways here, right? So it's a word, let's just take it out of here. Make your point, okay?
I'll see if I can come up with a synonym for it.
Well,
I feel like
I
I'm
understand
taking-
I understand your argument. So focus on, just continue where you were, but no comment whether I like ambush or don't like ambush. It's a word I've heard a lot on both sides.
I understand, Your Honor. My point is the evidence that now is being sought should never be presented in front of a jury. We didn't have opportunity to get this in advance. This has, it's at least, very least, been in the Commonwealth's possession for weeks. He took notes about it. He now says, well, I didn't take notes about that specifically. I don't believe that as far as I can throw him. I think he did take notes about it. He was shown the video. He provided a new opinion. Mr. Lally knew that he was providing a new opinion. And then the first time he discloses this opinion is in front of the 16 jurors, 15 jurors. We would ask for its exclusion, Your Honor. And I'll submit.
All right, Mr. Lally.
Yes, Your Honor. As far as the pattern, especially coming from counsel, I simply find it laughable. As far as Officer Sarif, I think what counsel is referring to was testimony that was in his grand jury testimony. He was crossed about whether or not it was in his report, but it was in his grand jury testimony. As far as Ms. McCabe is concerned, that was regarding reciprocal discovery that was given to the Commonwealth weeks into trial by the defendant. It was then shown to a witness, which is perfectly permissible. Counsel asked a question of Ms. McCabe on cross, and she was aware of the material based on the late disclosure of reciprocal discovery. So there's no violation there. As it relates to, and why I say laughable, Your Honor, is that I am still...
I don't like hearing you say laughable. Just
Understood.
stick to what the arguments are. And
With respect to this witness...
Hold on. Quit the finger pointing, name calling, things like that, please. I
Yes.
know it's been a long week. It's been a particularly long day, but just focus on what you want to argue to me.
And I apologize to the court for that, Your Honor. With respect to this testimony, it's well within his realm as a crash reconstructionist. This is a witness who's responded to and investigated hundreds of crashes involving damage to vehicles. Simply making an observation of contact between two vehicles or purported contact between two vehicles on a video. The force is self-evident, and whether or not that force is sufficient to cause the damage that he personally observed on the defendant's vehicle is well within his expertise. And should be permissible as far as for this witness to be able to testify to.
What about the non-disclosure to the defense? So showing this video and asking for an opinion, what about that?
So, Your Honor, what I would say is I did not show this video and ask this opinion. This is a video that actually the trooper mentioned to me that he had seen over the course of while the case was pending probably over a year ago, that he had seen that video. What I showed him was the photographs of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle and asked whether or not he observed any damage consistent with the damage to the taillight observing or popping up on Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle.
Why wasn't that turned over?
In hindsight, it should have been, Your Honor.
All right. So it's late. I'm not ruling here. I want to review everything. I would like, I'm not obviously taking any of the evidence home with me. I would like, if it's possible, for what your IT person did on the expanding, like he did this second time, maybe I missed it, but I didn't see the tire move this time.
It did.
So I'd like that. I'd like that video, and I would like, what's the exhibit number here?
It's Exhibit 6. Do you want just that video, Your Honor?
And the pictures of the cars, whatever was shown during this voir dire, I would like those emailed to me so that I can look at them this weekend while I'm deciding, or put them on a flash drive right now.
That's what I'm making.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We'll do a screen record and get it to the court by email. We can do that. I just need an hour once we get back to home base.
Okay. All right, Ms. Gilman, will you burn what you have for me before we leave somehow?
Your Honor, if I could, I just want to close one loop.
Okay.
What I was referring to with Ms. McCabe, I want to make sure that this is clear because this has come up a couple of times. The only thing I was referring to, or what I was referring to, it's not the only thing, but what I was referring to with Ms. McCabe is after Ms. McCabe testified, days and days and days after she testified and she was excused as a witness, then we got the report from Lieutenant Tully about the new information that she disclosed on the witness stand. In other words, she was cross-examined about it, etc. And then after she testified and was cross-examined and gone, then we got a report that predated her testimony that was in the possession of the Commonwealth, or at least in the possession of Lieutenant Tully. That's what I was talking about. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. We don't need to go into it any further.
Did you want to add anything to that, Mr. Lally?
No, Your Honor.
All right. So I'll see you Monday morning.
Look, all rise.
You are unmuted.
Too bad I'm not unstressed. Okay. What was that? Let's stop the fan. Thank you. It's giving me a headache. Okay. Okay. Where are we? What's going on? Obviously, the Commonwealth is trying to prove that nothing happened to her car when she bumped into the Traverse and left on the early morning hours before she found John. And it only happened after, somewhere in there, she hit him. And it's not clear she backed into him or what. With all that information that Trooper Joseph Paul had, all those charts and stuff, and the speeding up and the slowing down, and where did that happen? Where? They can't pinpoint anything. It was a waste of time. So was the whole testimony of Jessica Hyde, because it went around and around and up and down and through and over, and could be more likely nothing definite. Timestamp is not indicating a time of search. Okay. Then what's the timestamp for? As far as I'm concerned, the whole day was wasted, because I felt the same way about the morning testimony and the afternoon testimony. It was a waste of time, because you're waiting to see them say, well, the GPS in the car system said it was here, and the instruments in the car at this point, at this location, say that it backed up and rammed into something. Nothing. But insinuations, innuendos, possibly, could have, might have. I've got to find where they showed the tow truck pulling the car up onto the bed of the tow truck. Because that is one of the last times you see the rear right lights. And you will see that it still has red. But once it gets to the Sally port, all the red is gone except for two little pieces. I'm so tired of this taillight crap. We know where it got cracked. And we know that once it arrived at the Sally port, it was pulled apart and pieces were taken over and spread around on Albert's yard. Some have said the initial pieces that were found on that morning, right after when the CERT team was there, the pieces that they found, they don't match nothing. They don't match a thing. They scrounged around and found some to throw around real quick. I don't know. I don't know that for sure, but I do know it's a setup. I do know it's a setup. It's a frame job, and they're gaslighting, and it infuriates me. And I'm going to leave it at that, and you can make up your mind however you want to. I will be interested to see what they come up with on Monday. I would be interested to see further cross-examination of Trooper Joseph Paul and see where that goes. And I hope they're going to start providing some real evidence, not innuendo, not insinuations, not could have, might, none of this other crap, and not taking days in order to say anything. So we see her car going up and down out by the library and out by the temple. Yeah, we don't have any aggravation against that. She was out looking for John. What do you think she was doing? Do you see her prowling around? I mean, come on. It's too much. Lally, you better hand over the case to the defense and buckle up, bud, and take your lookings, because there's a lot coming. That's all I've got to say. And it better be quick. The jurors, probably the two jurors that they've lost now, were probably so sick to their stomach of all this crap that they couldn't handle it anymore. I know I would be. I would be throwing up my hands and thrown up. We will leave it here for now. Try to set all this aside. You know what's coming. Set this all aside. Have a great weekend. Forget all this. Take a deep breath, and we'll get together again on Monday. Until then, take care, and God bless.